I saw this article and I thought it was interesting. I don't know if I'm seeing the same thing in my market, but I thought we should go over it. And so it says buyers increasingly back out of deals. And this is on Realty Times. And it says for the past 2 years, the demand for real estate has been enormous. Several factors converge for that to be the case. For example, the pandemic meant people could work remotely so they could move anywhere in the country. Inflation led buyers to want a hard asset like property. And there's also a low inventory of homes, so buyers were clamoring and often engaging in bidding wars. This line here, inflation led buyers to want a hard asset. I can't believe that's 100% true, because the real inflation that I was complaining about was happening in January. And I felt like the Fed at that time should be raising the rates, and they didn't. So I don't agree with that. But what I would say instead of this, you should say the rates at the time were in the threes. So you could say that the mortgage rates led buyers to be able to afford a home much grander than they could have originally envisioned. You know, I've talked about this. I had a buyer that wanted to buy, was approved to buy a $475,000 home, and when the rates went up to 5.5%, they were down looking at like a $350,000 home, $375,000. I mean, it was literally $100,000 difference because they are controlled by monthly payments, monthly mortgage payments. And so, you know, what do I think of that? I don't know. I thought it was kind of interesting. So according to this article, the inflation led buyers to want a hard asset. I don't believe that's the case. I believe cheap money allowed people to buy hopefully a better house than they could have ever dreamed about. I mean, there's a big difference between a $475,000 house and a $350,000 house. Besides the number, it's what you get for the money. I hope I don't have a cough or anything because I just drank all my water. Not good. Anyway, let's get back into this article. I'm sorry. I'm kind of going all over the place tonight. It says now, after 2 years of a frenzied market, things might be changing. According to a new report from Redfin, around 60,000 purchase agreements fell through in the U.S. in July, which was about 15% of all the homes that went under contract in June. This was the highest cancellation rate since early 2020, when the initial days of the pandemic led to an almost complete stop of the real estate market and associated transactions. So I don't want you to think that I'm picking on the article. It's much easier to pick on an article than it is to write one. But my remembrance of 2020, I had a deal where I represented the buyers, and it was just during the pandemic. And we went and closed on the deal. That wasn't an issue. And then about a couple weeks later, I had another deal where I went in, and then it was like, you couldn't go in the office for closing. You had to sign a couple waivers. One of the waivers was because of the Rona, they weren't filing title fast enough. They weren't recording titles in the county offices. And so you agreed to hold the title company harmless if there were any claims against your title between the time that they closed on the deal and the time it was recorded. There was an affidavit you had to sign that says you currently still have a job, that it wasn't lost due to the pandemic. And so that was what I saw, but I didn't see people not doing deals. In fact, it seemed to skyrocket as soon as the pandemic started. It says, but by the way, like right now, I do see a lot of houses going back on the market. And I was seeing them a while ago, and my answer to that, or my reasoning for that, was they're going back on the market because a lot of those buyers at the time were still thinking that they were in the threes for their mortgage rate, and the rates had moved up to like 5.7%, and they just didn't know it. I mean, some lenders give you a letter for like 6 months, so it wouldn't have been obvious to them that the rates had changed so dramatically. Now I think most everyone knows that the rates are, in the fives at least. And so that's brought some clarity to the market. And I think it keeps deals from people bailing from those things. But there's just a lot of psychology involved in this situation. One, if you're an agent and you've been showing a buyer a house for like, I don't know, 2 years and they still haven't bought, you just hope they buy something because you've already lost your money. And so you're happy to throw somebody in a house that they don't really particularly want and isn't the right fit because you're tired of them. I think that happened. I also think that, have you ever lost on something and vowed like, hey, I'm going to try again and this time I'm going to win? A lot of people have that personality. And so like whenever you lose out, for instance, one of the houses I had listed, there were 20 offers. And I'd say there were 5 offers of that 20 that were just outstanding offers. We took one of them. So 4 people really put in a great offer and ended up not getting it. And you try to do that over and over again. Sometimes I think people just want to win the bidding war and don't really care about the house at a certain point. And so I think that happened. Another thing I think happened was I have some background in construction. I have some background in, home repair, home improvement. And I know that a lot of agents don't. And how that manifests itself is when I'm going through a house, I'm pointing out to my buyer everything I see in the home that might be iffy. So like if we go and see the systems like the HVAC, if that thing is 40 years old, I flat out tell them like, look, this could be between $6,000 and $12,000 to replace. If we go by the water heater and it's ancient, I point that out. If I see mold, obviously there's so many different kinds of mold. I mean, I'll point it out, but I don't have any sort of, this is definitely mold type thing, or we definitely know moisture in a basement, mildew smells, things of that nature. Things that would cost buyers money, I tell them about. I feel like it's my duty. Now, like I said, I don't know everything wrong with a house, but my approach is going to be drastically different than the buyer's agent that's looking at the wall color and the style of the home, the interior decor, and saying, oh, isn't this a wonderful home? You should live here, with knowing nothing about any of the systems of the home, their costs, or if they're even a problem or not. So that's just a difference between me and some other buyer's agents. That may be what's happening in the marketplace, is that buyers have been looking for a long time. They finally won a bidding war. They're so excited. And then when they get the inspection, they're like, this house is trash. Why did my agent let me get this house? Well, it turns out your agent doesn't know anything about those things that are probably more important than the color of the walls. Like probably a lot more important. Anyway, it says one reason is that there's less competition. When people are facing a lot of competition as buyers, they don't want to miss opportunities. There's a sense of urgency. Now there's less competition because the market appears to be slowing. So buyers have more room to negotiate, which can in certain situations lead them to back out of deals. But you know what? I don't agree with that. So when you make an offer, okay, let's say right now in this market, a house has been on the market for 2 weeks. So let's say you come in at asking price or below asking price, and they come in and they say, we'll take asking price. And you say, all right, we've been looking for a long time. Here's asking price. Okay. You're not backing out of a deal then. Okay. You never had an offer in the first place. You're just completing the offer by negotiating. That's not backing out of a deal. So that's number one. Number two, it says buyers are keeping contingencies like inspections and appraisal contingencies, whereas even a few months ago, they were waiving those to stay competitive. When the buyers have these contingencies in place, they have the flexibility to deal with issues that might come up as they're in the buying process. So definitely that was the case. I've told you how you would get around an appraisal contingency. I've told you how you would get around a home inspection. I recommend you get a home inspection every single time. Even though I walk through the house and I see a lot of things, I'm not trained as an inspector and I miss things. And I also don't know everything. I was in a house where the electric panel isn't wired properly. I have no idea if it's wired properly. I mean, when you get in the box, Apparently a ground wire was supposed to go somewhere. I don't know that. I don't claim to be an electrician. So I agree. Now, when you do back out, you lose your inspection, the money you paid for your inspection. If you have an appraisal, you lose the money you paid for the appraisal most of the time. Most of the time. So I'm not certain that that more people are bailing because of inspections. Excuse me. If you find something in a house that you're not comfortable with, you have the right to leave based on some offers. Take advantage of it. It's not a bad thing to back out of a deal, is my opinion. It's not good, but I mean, sometimes it's better. I think the biggest thing I have that I see is, buyers get cold feet. They're like, what are we doing? Like, why are we buying this house? It says another reason for people backing out of deals is the highest interest rates, which are making homes less affordable. That's on the buyer. They need to know what their payments are going to be. And that's on the lender too. And, lenders are not all the same. A lot of people will be like, hey, we'll go with the cheapest lender. Well, or we'll go with our credit union because we do everything with our credit union. Well, when the credit union doesn't tell you what your payments are going to be on a certain amount of price, and they just say, here's your pre-approval letter. We haven't really looked at it, but it's probably close to this. That's not really providing a service. It's not really helping you. So, I mean, I can believe it, but I don't like it. It said the Fed is working on pouring water on red hot inflation through tightening. In June, the Fed raised the benchmark interest rates by 75 basis points. It was the largest hike in rates since 1984. Then at the end of July, they announced another 75 basis point increase. It says, we don't know yet if raising rates will help slow inflation, but it's making it more expensive to borrow money that can significantly change the plans of would-be buyers. But it's gone down. And I showed you it's gone down. It says if you made an offer when the rates were 5%, but you didn't lock it in, and the deal is going to close at nearly 6%, you may not be able to afford the same home, or you may not qualify for a loan anymore. And so, just for all of you out there, when you write an offer contingent on financing, you can write it contingent on a rate not to exceed. So in my offers lately, I've been at 6%. If the deal is, if we can't get a loan for less than 6%, 30-year fixed, we're out. And that's just the way it is. Have we had to leave because of an interest rate hike? No. And I'll talk to the buyer about that. Perhaps, say rates go up to 10. Okay. That means somebody can probably buy a $150,000 house when they could have bought a $250,000 house, originally. We'll just go over it. Like, do you feel comfortable paying this amount for this house at this time? What I think is lost in this is that there are people that need to buy homes and sell homes every day of the year. I mean, it's not like they can time the market. It's like we need to buy a house because something's happening in our lives that we need to buy a house for. And that's okay. That's a good thing. But, you just have to know, if the rates are high, you just have to know kind of what you can afford and things of that nature. It says if a third major factor is that there's a general sense of uncertainty and unease about the economy, but that doesn't mean like I'm uncertain about the economy. Okay. Am I more uncertain about the economy now than I've ever been? No. Well, what does that mean? I don't know. Here's what I do know is that, sometimes you have to take chances. Okay. But if you put an offer in and it's an accepted offer, you shouldn't be walking out because there's this general sense of uncertainty and unease about the economy. My opinion is you should never have written an offer in the first place. It says, according to Fannie Mae's Home Purchase Sentiment Index, only 20% of respondents recently said they think it's a good time to buy a home. The labor market seems to be faring well after the recession induced by the pandemic, but regardless, consumers and home buyers are growing increasingly concerned. It says, in June, 81% of consumers said the economy was on the wrong track. Fannie Mae's senior vice president, chief economist, said it shows that people are frustrated with inflation and the slowing economy. There were also more than 20% of respondents that said they had worries about their job stability. And that's another interesting thing. How many of you ever feel like your job is secure? Like I'll tell you, in the back of my mind, my fear is always that I won't have a buyer or a seller to sell a home to or help buy a home. I have like, I don't know, 7 or 8 buyers right now, but I still get nervous about it. But I've lived with that since 2009, So again, it doesn't answer for why you would write an offer on a house and then be concerned about the economy. It says it looks as if people's concern might not be abating anytime soon. Mortgage rates are likely to continue to go up. They've already gone from just over 3% for the average 30-year fixed rate loan in January to around 6%. Until there's strong evidence that inflation has peaked, rates will likely stay on an upward trajectory. Do you think that we're at peak inflation? On the flip side, because there's still a housing shortage, prices are likely to keep going up in the coming months. Although appreciation rates will probably slow. Inventory is improving, but still tight because builders have slowed their production of single-family homes. Finally, in very pricey markets where homes were already unaffordable, most will be more sensitive to rate changes for mortgages. So there may be opportunities for some buyers that wouldn't have had otherwise. Now, and that doesn't make any sense either. I have one buyer right now that can buy in cash at least to $1 million. They don't care if the rates go up or down. They don't want a mortgage. They don't even care. So that leads me to believe they're not thinking that one through.